What do you see the future is as far as the acceptability to the larger population? Do you see people adopting this stuff in greater numbers? Do you see that that is increasing? Is that going up, or is it going to be a long time before we see the general population looking toward these products as a viable alternative to traditional meat?
Well, people are already eating plant-based meat and fungi-based meats a lot. So, Corn, the company we've been talking about in the UK, QUORN, they're selling several $100 million of product every single year. In fact, I was in London last year and I saw a sign outside of a KFC that advertised they were using corn. And I went in and looked at it, and the corn patty was basically nearly the same price as a chicken patty. It was pretty impressive. So, obviously, people in London are quite happy to eat fungi-derived products if the KFC consumer is going in and buying them. Now, and the same is so if you go to Burger King in the United States, they all have Impossible Whoppers now, so somebody's buying those, right? With clean meat, we don't know yet. It's not on the market. We know that surveys show that a good number of people, not everybody, but a good number of people say that they would be happy to eat it. But you don't need everybody to eat it. You don't need everybody. Even if we could have a reduction in 25% of the animals who are used for food, that would spare billions of animals from factory farming. You could rewild millions of acres of deforested land that was used for crop production to feed all those cows, or that was used for pasture for cows. And so while the evidence is suggestive that people are happy to eat clean meat, it's not everybody, but it's a good number of people. The problem is that even plant-based meat and fungi-derived meats today, despite the fact that they're a multi-billion-dollar industry, are a minimal rounding error when it comes to the total meat industry. The global meat industry is worth about $1.5 trillion. The global plant-based meat industry is only single-digit billions of dollars. So, the plant-based meat industry today is not even 1%. Not even 1% of the total meat industry. Even if you look at just the United States, where the plant-based meat industry is the most mature, even here in the United States, plant-based meat is not 1%. It's not 1%. And so there's this question, is it going to be like organic, which has really not grown that much, right? Organic is still well less than 5% of the total food industry. Is it going to be like that, where decades later it's still a minimal portion of the food industry? Or is it going to grow into something that becomes more mainstream? Where it's going to be, something that might be 20, 30, 40%. It's kind of like electric cars. 10 years ago, they were at 0% of the market, essentially. And now it's single-digit percentages, and it's presumed that electric cars are going to be the future. Already in places where I live, like California, it's going to be illegal by 2035 to even sell new cars that have internal combustion engines. Automakers like GM say that in the future, they're going to stop making internal combustion engine cars. And so you kind of see how electric cars are going to go from a rounding error in the vehicle industry to becoming the norm, and maybe even the only option eventually within decades. And so my hope is that plant-based meat is going to be like that it won't remain like organic, which for decades has remained essentially a rounding error in the total food industry, whereas it'll be more like electric cars and that it'll become the norm. But we'll see.
And what challenges have you seen, or do you expect from traditional animal agriculture? Obviously, to the extent that this could displace those products on the market, there's going to be an aggressive pushback. Have you seen that? And what are the expectations? And to the extent that you've seen it, how is that presented itself?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're absolutely right, Michael. I wish that you were wrong, but you are right. And that is that whenever there's an incumbent industry that is threatened by a new innovator, they're going to fight back on it. And so that has manifested itself in a variety of ways. And this is not new. Even in the 19th century, the dairy industry was crusading against margarine, or they called oleomargarine at the time, because margarine was cheaper than butter. And so the dairy industry fought to pass laws in the 19th century that taxed margarine to make it more expensive than butter. Some states even passed laws requiring margarine to be dyed pink so that not only would it look repulsive, but it meant that, nobody would confuse it for actual butter. And now we don't have those laws anymore, but we have laws that are similar to that. You have a number of states that are looking at legislation right now that would restrict how you can market these products. So whether you can call them meat, like plant-based meat, right? So can you call it a plant-based burger if it doesn't have actual cow meat in it? Similarly, there are fights about whether you can call things plant-based eggs. There's a popular product called Just Egg that's made out of mung beans, and it says right on the front of the package, made from plants, not chickens. But there's a question, from the egg industry. They're going to say, oh, this isn't, they're confusing consumers. And then Tanya is pointing out that there's still a fight over the term milk today. Like
Mhm.
the question, can you call it soy milk or oat milk or almond milk or so on? And in Europe, they've actually banned a lot of these terms. Now, does it matter? I mean, I don't know. Like, the most popular brand is Silk. They don't use the term milk, right? They just call it Silk. They don't say it's soy milk. They say Silk. Or Oatly, right? Oatly doesn't say this is oat milk. They just call it Oatly. And does that matter to the consumer? I don't know. I don't know whether it matters or not, whether what it's called. But certainly the meat, egg, and dairy industries, or at least some people in them, do care, and they're trying to pass laws to crack down on how these products are marketed. Similarly, when it comes to clean meat or real meat grown from animal cells, there's also a real problem because you now have states that are looking not just to restrict the marketing of them, but to ban their sale altogether. So the Florida legislature just about 2 weeks ago passed a law. Governor DeSantis has not yet signed it, but he indicates his support for it. Hopefully he'll change his mind. But in Florida, they have now, the legislature at least, has passed a law that would make it a criminal act merely to sell cultivated meat. And the sponsor of the bill explicitly said that he was doing it because he wanted to protect the cattle industry. So you have some critics of the clean meat space who are, maybe some people even who are listening to this right now who would say, oh, I don't like it because I don't think I don't like technology and food or whatever. But you have other critics who are with the meat industry who say they don't like it because they think it poses a threat to the factory farming of animals and they're trying to ban it. And so you have real legislative offenses that are going on right now to attempt to kill this nascent industry while still in the cradle. And it's not just Florida. In Tennessee, there's a bill right now that's pending in the state legislature that would not only make it a crime to sell meat grown from animal cells, but would fine you $1 million if you were convicted of it. Now, keep in mind, in Tennessee, armed robbery carries a maximum fine of $50,000. So imagine if this bill were to become law, you could go rob somebody with a gun in Tennessee and only pay a $50,000 fine. But if you sell cultivated meat, you get charged $1 million. So, this is the type of kind of wacko world that we live in when you see industries getting threatened by new types of innovators. And it's imperative that anybody who wants to see this industry thrive, that wants to see this industry actually be able to make a dent and build a more sustainable food system that's less reliant on animals, that we fight back against these bills, that we can create the lobbying efforts needed if you live in Florida or Tennessee, for example, to make sure that your lawmakers know that you oppose these types of ill-conceived bills. And Laura mentions the EATS Act, which is another offense. It's not so much about the marketing of alternative meat products, but it would ban states from regulating animal welfare practices of the products that are sold within their state. So where I live in California, we have a law that says if you want to sell eggs or pork in the state, they can't come from animals who are locked in cages where they couldn't move their whole lives. The Supreme Court ruled that that was constitutional, but there's now a bill pending in Congress called the EATS Act, which would be designed to basically federally nullify those types of laws. California is not the only state that's done it. Numerous other states have done it too. But there is a big battle, the public policy level at the state and federal level, over meat-based foods right now, both from an animal welfare perspective and just the alternative proteins perspective too.
And just a small question. Is there any way to tell the difference between um, grown meat versus regular meat? And what would, if not, how would you stop, companies saying, oh yeah, this is grown meat, but it's really just the animal agriculture packaging it and labeling it.
Well, the price would be one way because it costs a lot more to grow the meat than to raise an animal right now. So there's a very steep price increase. So it would be tough to see how anybody could sell it at price parity with conventional meat right now. But yeah, this would be an issue. Is how do you tell the difference? And I don't have a good answer for this right now, Michael. I think that as these companies get closer to mainstream commercialization, they're going to have some way to do that. And I think that it will be scientifically possible to do because it's not going to be totally identical to slaughter-based meat. Maybe one way would be to see what the fecal pathogen load is on the meat. And if it's high, then it's an indication that it's not actually clean meat, that this is slaughter-based meat. But this is a good question. This raises interesting questions about what will happen in the future, and I don't know the answer to that.
Great. So we're going to wrap up. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
I just want to say thank you. You're taking your time out of your schedule to try to make your life and the world a better place. And I really appreciate all that you're doing to build a better food system. The most important thing that we can do is build a food system that's less reliant on animals. That will help whether you're concerned about health, whether you're concerned about the environment, whether you're concerned about animal welfare, and more. Reducing our reliance on animals for food is the most pressing thing that we can do to build a better food system. And I am enthusiastic about a variety of ways to do that, whether it's just eating more plants or eating plant-based meat, fungi-derived meats, or in the future, even cultivated meats. But right now, we have to find ways to wean ourselves off of this addiction to the factory farming of animals. And I'm grateful to every one of you who is working toward that end. I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to contact me. My website is bettermeat.co. Again, bettermeat.co. You can contact me through there. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in reading my book, it's called Clean Meat: How Growing Meat Without Animals Will Revolutionize Dinner and the World. As I mentioned earlier, there's a new updated paperback edition that actually came out just today. You can buy that on Amazon or anywhere the books are sold. Or if you want to learn more about the book, go to cleanmeat.com. Again, cleanmeat.com. And if you're interested in investing in this space, I'd love to hear from you as well. So please contact me. I'll give you my direct email address, which is paul.shapiro@bettermeat.co. Again, paul.shapiro@bettermeat.co. Please get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you and love to work with you to build a better food system together.
And what was the name of your wife's cookbook?
She's published 4 cookbooks, but the most popular one is called Plant-Based on a Budget. So check that out. Plant-Based on a Budget by Tony Okamoto.
All right, great. Thank you so much. If we could unmute the audience so they can share their appreciation for Paul.
Get my money's worth.
That's
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
And you can add one
Mira,
beside.
estoy revisando aquí lo que me